Hey everybody, I'm Mike with Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike, this is MK Outdoor Journal, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. It is Friday, November 26th, the day after Turkey Day, 2021. And I hope all of you had a happy Thanksgiving. Tonight, on our esteemed panel, we have with us the one, the only, the person trapped behind enemy lines, Calaveras 32 Special, the Tactical Pickle himself. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine, and thank you as always for the invite. And that was fun listening to you figuring out the technical diddlies.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you got to do that around here. That's kind of how it works.
Good thing I was muted because I was laughing at you.
That's not very nice, dude. Laughing at me? Come on.
Oh, if you don't laugh at me at least once a week means, I need to step up my game.
Well, yeah, okay. I'll give you that one. Like to welcome everybody out there in the chat. We got Gun Loving Grandpa out there, Mountain View, Jason Stewart, Artak and Daughters, Grim 90, Joseph Todson. Says we need more moderators up in here. Well, I give my patrons on Patreon and channel members a wrench. It's one of the perks that they get. So most of the people that you see with the wrench, they're patrons. Screaming Skull Saloon is in the house. Hello, everybody out there. All 6 of you watching, according to my numbers. So glad you're here. Geez, we got some stuff to talk about this week. We usually do. They tend to not give us a week off, right? Not Rob New York Outcast is in the house. Sorry. I probably lost a couple people with the tactical diddlies. Hopefully they'll come back when they see that I actually went live. So, yeah. All right. You guys know, I'm sure, about the Waukesha Christmas Parade attack. For those that don't know, a individual drove his SUV through a crowd, deliberately swerving, trying to hit people in Waukesha at a Christmas parade. He killed 5 or 6 people and wounded a whole bunch more. Now, we heard about this for a little bit the day it happened and maybe the day after, but after that, it's kind of died away. And I have my theories as to why. But first, let's go ahead, as we always do, and see what the articles on the internet have to say about this. Then we'll discuss. This is from the New York Times from, when's it from? November 23rd. It's what we know and don't know about the Wisconsin parade attack. Waukesha, Wisconsin. An 8-year-old boy became the 6th person to die in the Christmas parade tragedy. Now I'm going to stop right there. It's not a tragedy. A hurricane's a tragedy. An earthquake is a tragedy. A wildfire is a tragedy. This is something that was under the control of and perpetrated by an alleged human being. This is an atrocity. So the Christmas parade atrocity in Waukesha, Wisconsin, his family announced on Tuesday. 5 adults were killed and more than 60 other people were injured after the driver of an SUV plowed through musicians, dancers, and onlookers during a holiday ritual on Sunday in the Milwaukee suburb. The suspect in the attack, Darrell E. Brooks, 39, appeared in court on Tuesday as prosecutors formally charged him with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, sobbing as prosecutors recounted what had happened at the parade. Prosecutors said they expected to file a 6th homicide charge. So he appeared in court crying. Yeah, what a tough guy. I'll tell you right now, and this is me editorializing, this isn't the New York Times. I'll tell you right now, judging from the thumbnail I put up, the picture I put in there with him wearing his, what correction officers fondly refer to as the turtle suit, this guy's a bitch. Because this means he's on suicide warning, he's suicide watch. They have to take suicide precautions because, you know, this tough-ass thug, wannabe rapper, hardened criminal with an extensive police record who can drive over a bunch of people in his car can't handle the consequences for it. But I digress. Anyhow, he was in court crying. A court commissioner set Mr. Brooks' bail at $5 million. Here's what is known and what is still unclear about the atrocity. Again, they use the word tragedy. I correct it with atrocity. In Waukesha, Wisconsin. The Waukesha police believe Mr. Brooks drove a maroon Ford Escape through the parade. The city's police chief, Daniel Thompson, said Mr. Brooks, who has a lengthy arrest record, was arrested near the parade route and is believed to have acted alone. Prosecutors on Tuesday charged Mr. Brooks with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and in charging documents described a terrifying rampage in which a vehicle traveling at an estimated 25 miles per hour barreled through the crowded route. A Waukesha police detective said he initially stepped in front of the Ford Escape and pounded on its hood, shouting "Stop" several times. But the vehicle, at that time moving at a relatively slow speed, kept moving. Seconds later, the officer said he heard on his radio that the vehicle had picked up speed as it proceeded onto East Main Street and struck several pedestrians. Other officers attempted to intervene, with one officer firing 3 shots into the vehicle, but it continued without stopping. As I continued to watch the SUV, it continued to drive in a zigzag motion, one witness told the police, according to the charging documents. It was like the SUV was trying to avoid vehicles, not people. There was no attempt made by the vehicle to stop, much less slow down. Another witness told a detective that the driver appeared to have a direct intent to hit as many parade participants as possible. Jackson Sparks, 8, became the youngest victim of the parade attack when he died on Tuesday, his family said in a crowdfunding site. Jackson and his 12-year-old brother, Tucker, were 2 of 18 children admitted to Wisconsin Children's Hospital on Sunday. Jackson had brain surgery that evening. Tucker, who sustained road rash and a fractured skull, will be discharged from the hospital. A cousin of the siblings, Alyssa Albro, wrote that the family would continue to heal and mourn the tremendous loss of their sweet little boy, who is now under the care of Jesus. The 5 adults who died in the attack were over age 50, including 3 members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, a group of women whose pom-pom routines have long been a staple of local holiday parades. The victims included Virginia Sorensen, 79, the group's choreographer, Leanna Owen, 71, a dancer, and Tamara Durand, 52, a new member performing for the first time. Also killed were a dancer's husband, Wilhelm Hospel, 81, and Jane Kulik, 52, a Citizens Bank teller. The motive for the attack is unclear. Chief Thompson said Mr. Brooks intentionally struck people with this car after fleeing a domestic dispute possibly involving a knife. Police officers were responding, though not pursuing Mr. Brooks, when he veered into the parade route, officials said. Chief Thompson said there was no indication that Mr. Brooks knew of anyone marching in the parade, nor was there any sign that the incident was an act of terrorism. The suspect had recently been released from jail. Mr. Brooks had been arrested repeatedly in Wisconsin since the 1990s, accused at different points of battery and domestic abuse and resisting the police. This month, prosecutors in Milwaukee said he intentionally ran over a woman he knew with a maroon Ford Escape. Prosecutors in Milwaukee County said they had erred in recommending a $1,000 cash bail on that case. They also, which this article doesn't say, lowered his bail. because of a woke SJW prosecutor who doesn't want to put people in jail. The attack marred a beloved holiday tradition. Mayor Sean Riley described the march down Main Street as a Norman Rockwell type of Christmas parade that has been a cherished event in Waukesha for decades, with high school bands and dance troupes and local politicians all walking through town. Residents were especially excited for this year's iteration after the parade was called off in 2020 because of COVID-19. More than 60 entries from the fire department to the Waukesha Old Car Club to Santa Claus had signed up for the parade. That parade became a nightmare, Mr. Riley said on Monday. Lives were lost during the middle of what should have been a celebration. It's unknown why Mr. Brooks was in Waukesha. Chief Thompson said Mr. Brooks had been involved in a domestic dispute shortly before he drove through the parade, but the police did not respond to questions about exactly where that dispute took place or why they believe Mr. Brooks had come to Waukesha in the first place. In court records, Mr. Brooks usually listed addresses in Milwaukee, about 20 miles east of Waukesha. So this piece of garbage, this utter filth, drove through this parade intentionally running down people with an SUV, killed 6 and wounded over 60. But we're not hearing about this. The media isn't harping on it. It's not the thing in the 24-hour news cycle. This is a horrific attack. This is a horrific atrocity committed by someone for seemingly no reason. And the media is quiet. I have to question why. But I already know why. Why do you think this is, Pickle? And out there in the chat, why do you guys think the media is silent on this?
Well, it doesn't fit a narrative for one, but it's also the same reason why we're not seeing, a bunch of tweets coming out saying, harping on, why someone traveled, so far in order, to quote unquote perpetrate an attack, like we did not too long ago.
With a high capacity assault truck.
I mean, a Ford Escape is certainly not a huge vehicle, but it's certainly not, when up against, pedestrians, certainly even up against pedestrians and whatnot, it is very much a, deadly weapon.
Joseph Todson out there says communist, Marxist, Nazis don't like the truth and hide it as much as they can. Gunpowder Beauty says this was a massacre with a damn vehicle. The POS used his vehicle twice to injure people, yet he was able to get out on bail after the first time for $1,000. Yep.
Yeah, that's for $1,000 bail. Sounds, for a vehicular attack previously seems exceedingly low.
We have to have bail reform. We can't be too harsh on people. Unless they're lawfully committing self-defense in Wisconsin, and then fuck them, we're going to try to nail their ass to the wall.
What I was getting to, that's for unless they change it now, but that's for the bail that he, set for him this time seems much more appropriate.
Yeah. I'm surprised they even set any bail. Yeah, this guy was a rapper. And he had this same SUV in a couple of his videos, too. Let's see. Where are we at? New York Outcast says, I call for boots on all Fords to make sure they can't do this again till we can take them all America. You know what they really should be able to do is sue Ford for producing such a deadly vehicle that they knew would be used to kill so many people. Because how many people die as a result of Ford Escapes by Ford violence every year? I'm sure there's a lot of them. So obviously, Ford should be sued out of existence, and maybe we should put an onerous tax on all high capacity Fords so that, we know who has them so that we could, keep track of that. What do you think, Ro?
I agree. I think cars are so dangerous. They should have background checks to get them. And I mean, when I say background checks, I mean, we have to monitor them all the way until like from birth to when they die.
Well, and that's where obviously, Fords are a major issue because that's where, escapes obviously now are dangerous. But how many Mustangs have run over crowds in the past? I mean, they're kind of known for it. So,
I forgot about that.
With Fords.
First it was a Mustang, now it's an Escape. I do have to say that funny, he was trying to make an escape in an Escape, but I digress. But wait, folks, there's more. Let's go into, because we're not done talking about this. I got another article or two about this. Let me read this one first. This is from Yahoo News. From USA Today, the Waukesha effect. A surge in weaponized vehicles plowing into crowds wreaks havoc on national safety. By Dennis Wagner, USA Today, from November 24th. Before a red SUV smashed into parade marchers Sunday in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the driver plowed through barriers and raced past a police officer at a security post. Speaking of which, why the hell didn't that guy ventilate this dude? Oh, wait, because he didn't want to face riots and shit for shooting a guy, right? As horrible as the incident was, the brazenness of the apparent assault is not altogether unusual. This incident, which left 5 people dead and at least 40 injured, which we now know is 6 people dead and over 60 injured, raises new questions about the best security practices to protect crowds from a proliferating phenomenon known as vehicle ramming. Weaponizing of vehicles is a practice sometimes used by terrorists abroad, but the wanton attacks have also surged in the United States. The increase began after the police murder of George Floyd prompted Black Lives Matter demonstrations, which in turn prompted angry or fearful motorists to run over protesters. Now, how are they equating this asshole running over a parade with people trying to escape from protesters?
Well, that's where I could say, people trying to escape protesters versus people, there was instances that may have been people associated with some of these riots that had, potentially used their vehicles as weapons as well. I'd say that, they're probably trying to correlate them together, but there, is the two different types of situations.
A Boston Globe survey identified at least 139 incidents in which vehicles rammed into crowds of demonstrators since Floyd's death in May 2020. Fewer than half resulted in criminal charges. Now, see, look what Yahoo's doing here, or USA Today. The ramming in Waukesha does not fit the demonstrator profile. I'm surprised they admitted this. Parade goers were simply celebrating Christmas, and Police Chief Dan Thompson stressed in a news conference that the carnage was not an act of terrorism. Instead, the driver, identified as Darrell Brooks Jr., allegedly was fleeing the scene of an earlier domestic violence incident when the assault happened. Police said Monday night that they were drawing up 5 charges of intentional homicide against Brooks. Yet the security questions remain. How did the SUV get onto a parade route? What security measures were in place, and were they enough? At the news conference, Thompson said barricades had been put up at cross streets and police squads were in place to prevent traffic from breaching the parade. Yeah, did a bang-up job, didn't they? When the officer tried to engage and stop the threat, the driver still continued to the crowd, Thompson said. The officer fired his gun at the SUV, but was not able to thwart the attack. Video shows the red SUV crunch into and over metal barricades laid end-to-end on the roadway, then roaring past a police officer. Waukesha officials could not be reached Monday to discuss security measures in detail, and a copy of their plans was not immediately available. Participants in the 58th annual Waukesha Holiday Parade marched down Main Street through the heart of the community's business district. More than a dozen streets intersected the route. A Department of Homeland Security webpage on vehicle ramming notes that street events and other gatherings provide soft targets that often have little protection and can be attacked with devastating impact. The DHS guidance says security plans should take into account event needs and venues, so strategies cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach. Standard precautions include the use of bollards, trucks, planters, and other barricades to separate crowds from weaponized vehicles. It's important to ensure that these architectural solutions are appropriately sized, adequately anchored, and purposely reinforced against impact loads, the DHS advisory notes. Mia Bloom, a fellow with Georgia State University's New America's International Security Program, said event planning can help. But in the end, securing a venue is virtually impossible, especially when the crowd is on the street. There are just too many access points, she said, and too many ways to attack. She noted that the Waukesha driver penetrated security just as a terrorist would. It wasn't premeditated, she added, but it wasn't accidental. Bloom warned that vehicle ramming incidents are likely to increase because at least 15 states have adopted or are considering laws that shield motorists from criminal charges when they drive into demonstrators. Listen, people, you're comparing apples to bowling balls here. In an article for Just Security, Bloom said that the tactic gained traction among right-wing extremists. I wondered when they were going to blame us, because, we're all right-wing extremists. Don't you dare doubt it. After neo-Nazi James Fields killed one demonstrator and injured others with his vehicle during a rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in August 2017. Fields was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Today, Bloom said, fringe groups use social media to advocate vehicle attacks, stressing that drivers can simply claim they were fearful in defending themselves against rioters. That legal posture seems to be successful. See, and here they are, the media, USA Today, trying to make excuses and basically saying, well, those right-wing teabaggers, they did this first. This is all their fault. Gotta love the media, huh? What do you think about, out in the chat and anyone here on the panel, what do you think about the media's attempt to deflect the issue onto, quote-unquote, right-wing terrorist teabagger types like, well, you and me?
Not a surprise, but I know that's for Thanksgiving morning. I was at an event. And you could tell that there were some places they had better security than others. I mean, I don't. They say the metal, metal whatever's lined up. Because I can tell you, like on the event I was at, some intersections they had the movable signs with reflectors on them that would not stop anybody. Then there'd be other intersections that they would have, off-duty transit buses parked across the street, to prevent a vehicle from being able to get through. There is a huge difference between those as to what is and what is not secure.
Ro, do you have an opinion?
Oh man, I mean, dude, this is what they always do. They take a narrative and they twist it around, and it reminds me of the softball shooting that happened years ago when Steve Scalise got shot. They tried to play that off too, and that guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter. It seemed like, every time these people, they interject into the conversation, they find somebody other than themselves to blame. And what's sad is their base is the enabler for it. And it's politically speaking, I'm not on the left or right paradigms, man. I mean, I guess I may lean a little bit more right than left. I mean, but I'm more like, screw them both. Let's just have freedom, But I mean, that's just the trick of the trade for these guys. They never take responsibility. They don't care about people. They care about themselves and their grasp on power. And then when something goes sideways and it's somebody from their little area of the world, they play it off. It's at this point, it's like they're talking points for gun control, and it's the same old broken record stuff. And I wish people would. Some people are, some people aren't, but they're waking up to the fact of the tactics the left do, and it's getting old, man.
Oh, it's definitely getting old. But you know what? They keep at it because, honestly, it's been successful for them. This article in the New York Post, of all places, is pretty much hitting this right on the head. Liberal media ignores Waukesha Christmas Parade horror, from November 24th, by Miranda Devine. There's a reason that the Waukesha massacre has faded from the national media. There's a reason that MSNBC and CNN and CBS refer to it as merely a parade crash and quickly move on to other news. There's a reason that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have not prejudged the violent, racist, BLM-supporting career criminal charged with murder for driving his SUV deliberately into a Christmas parade in the mostly white Wisconsin town of Waukesha on Sunday, killing 6 innocents, including an 8-year-old boy, and injuring 62 others. There's a reason the media are incurious about the hate-filled anti-white social media protests or posts of suspect Darrell Brooks. Waukesha is of no interest to these people, not because the story does not serve their political purposes, as the Kyle Rittenhouse case did when they wanted to paint Donald Trump as a white supremacist. No, they're burying the Waukesha story because it threatens the very core of progressive revolution convulsing the country: criminal justice reform. 6 people would still be alive if Milwaukee had not been hijacked by progressive prosecutors. The Milwaukee Experiment, it was called in a gushing Jeffrey Toobin article in the New Yorker in 2015, praising Milwaukee's Democratic DA, John Chisholm. Elected in 2006, Chisholm is a leading light of the progressive prosecutor movement. His office let out Brooks on $1,000 bail November 16th after he allegedly punched his girlfriend in the face and deliberately ran over her with the SUV he allegedly used in Sunday's attack. Brooks's criminal record is over 50 pages long. This guy's criminal record is over 50 pages long. He punched his girlfriend in the face and ran her over with the same SUV he used to kill those people and wound the others, and they let him out on a $1,000 bond. Chisholm feigns dismay at the low bail now, but it was part of his plan. He knows what happens when you let violent, recidivist criminals out of jail, if you handicap police and strip them of their powers, if you break the adversarial system, turn prosecutors into social workers, and close prisons. Everyone knows. Crime and violence skyrocket, along with mental illness and homelessness. There's nothing compassionate or equitable about progressive criminal justice reforms. They tyrannize the weakest and most vulnerable, the elderly, the infirm, and women and children. Yes, Chisholm knew, and he didn't care. Is there going to be an individual I divert or put into a treatment program who's going to go out and kill somebody? He told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel in 2007. You bet. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed to happen. Guaranteed. Chisholm wasn't elected as a progressive, but his priority immediately became eliminating racial disparity. He didn't care if more black people were committing crimes. It was all about the outcome. Today, he boasts he has almost achieved his goal of eliminating racial disparity in jails. In some areas, there is almost no disparity, he told a panel March 11th when he appeared with notorious San Francisco DA Chelsea Boudin talking about the progressive prosecutor movement. Chisholm boasted that he had revolutionized the role of prosecutor from being a line prosecutor who takes and reviews frozen moments in time and actually get the prosecutor out of the courthouse and right into the community and give them a broad mandate to help solve problems. He calls these quasi-social workers community prosecutors. Allowing prosecutors to do things besides just prosecuting cases is actually very empowering. We have to move away from what we all have been indoctrinated in, the adversarial system. The only obstacle, he says, he faces now is fear of crime in the community, which drives state legislators to make bad law. With 191 homicides last year in Milwaukee alone, it's really hard to make an argument. We're at a time in our nation when violence is simply overwhelming the sense of our perspective of safety. People do not feel that they are safe. I wonder why that is. Boudin told the panel that just being a progressive prosecutor wasn't enough anymore. He said, "My friend, former Queens DA candidate Tiffany Cabin, said it best. It's not about being progressive or conservative. It's about being decarcerarial. That means abolishing prisons." This is not what Americans want, but it's an article of faith for progressives. You just had to watch Representative Rashida Tlaib trying to justify her prison abolition bill in an interview this week with Axios' Jonathan Swan to see that the policy is so absurd she has no way of justifying it. Although her bill explicitly would release everyone from jail, she simply denied that means child molesters and denied that means child molesters and violent rapists will roam the streets. Progressives pretend that everyone in jail is just there for smoking weed, while showing callous disregard for the victims of crime. In case you are under any illusion that this is all not an ideological strategy to destroy law and order, take a look at Boudin's revolutionary pedigree. He is the son of Kathy Boudin and David Gilbert, Marxist terrorist members of the Weather Underground, who were jailed for the murders of 2 police officers and a security guard during the Brinks robbery of 1981 in Rockland County. Boudin was 14 months old at the time and was brought up by Barack Obama's radical mentor and Weather Underground luminary Bill Ayers. Weather Underground luminary Bill Ayers. Yeah, well, this doesn't surprise me that this guy's a communist Marxist moonbat. He was raised by the guy that helped shape Barack Obama? Yeah. Last year, Boudin successfully lobbied then-Governor Andrew Cuomo to commute his father's 75 years to life sentence, and Gilbert was released this month. His mother was released in 2003 and immediately given an honored position as an adjunct professor at Columbia University, where she works on, you guessed it, dismantling the mass incarceration and transforming the criminal justice system. These people are embedded in the establishment. Guess what else domestic terrorists affiliated with the Weather Underground did on November 7, 1983? They bombed the Capitol in Washington, D.C., blowing a hole in a wall and pulverizing windows, chandeliers, and furniture. Yet President Biden tells us that the worst attack on democracy was the Capitol riot on January 6th of this year. One of the convicted conspirators for the 1983 Capitol bombing, Susan Rosenberg, had her 58-year sentence commuted by President Bill Clinton in 2001. What did she do then? She was instrumental in founding and fundraising for Black Lives Matter, a self-declared Marxist organization that advocates for the abolition of the nuclear family. So we come full circle. Progressive criminal justice reforms are not about equal justice. When it comes to Trump supporters such as Kyle Rittenhouse or the January 6 defendants still in pretrial detention in a D.C. jail, progressives are viciously punitive. They are weaponizing the criminal justice system to terrorize their ideological opponents and create mayhem. This is a revolution, and we will all be its victims, unless we wake up. I can't disagree with that in any particular. The mainstream media and the left are hiding this Waukesha incident, the attack, the atrocity. They're doing everything they can to let it go down the memory hole and let it die a natural death because it doesn't fit their agenda. It wasn't a white conservative with a gun that killed these people. It was a black Marxist with an SUV. It shows that the progressive defund the police, let's let everybody out of jail, let's not hold people accountable for their actions unless they're political opponents of ours, results in nothing but death and crime and destruction and chaos and anarchy. Which, of course, is what they want because, you know, how better to steal an election, folks? How better to keep us divided? How better to keep us squabbling and too worried about our own safety to pay attention to what they're doing? How better to divert us from things like the Ghislaine Maxwell trial? Does anybody know anything about that going on? Going to be starting this week? Are we hearing all of that? About that like we did the Rittenhouse thing? No, of course not. Don't trust the media, folks. Don't trust the legacy media. They do not have your best interest at heart. They have their own at heart. They have their masters at heart. That's why disarmament of civilians is a absolute cornerstone of the left strategy in this country. Because I have to ask why they want me to not have the ability to defend myself from them or anybody else. What do they plan to do? You know, a classic example of this is Australia, where they have disarmed the citizens, and now if you're even suspected of having COVID or suspected of having been in contact with anyone who has COVID, you're being taken off to quarantine centers. Camps, folks. They're physically removing people and taking them into camps. The Australians can't do shit about it. Citizen disarmament leads to tyranny. And there's a reason that the media pushes the agenda that they do. Am I crazy? Am I going down the rabbit hole here? Should I take this hat off and put a tinfoil hat on? I mean, what do you guys think in the chat? What do you guys think if you're watching this on replay in the comments? What do you guys think on the panel? Am I knucking futs here?
No, man, I think you're spot on. I think looking at that article, first of all, that Tubman guy is the guy that got caught masturbating in front of his coworkers. So I don't trust anything he has to say with that devious actions of him. Second of all, nobody should ever listen to the media nowadays. I mean, we're a long ways away from back in the day. So, I mean, choose your news sources wisely. I mean, even on the right of the paradigm, man, they go pretty crazy in what they say and about each other. I think he's right, man, to a certain extent. I mean, you can't, if you disagree with it, that's just because you're really far left. But I think a lot of the country's kind of seeing. I mean, look at Biden's approval rating. I mean, come on. People are starting to wake up to what these people are doing, and hopefully it's a lot more than just what we're seeing. And they start ousting these people. I mean, Barack Obama, he was supposed to be, what was he? He was like the holy grail of the Democratic Party. And boy, did he crap the bed on some of the issues and policies he was doing. So, I mean, what are you going to do, man? You just got to keep pushing forward. You got to start at your local level, work your way up. And what I do is when I see the media doing the things that they're doing, I'll research it and I'll get the actual facts and put the actual facts out there and the source that I got them from.
Yep.
I mean, how many times have we seen the media talk about gun control and they use facts that don't exist or they're just way outdated? There's stuff from a long time ago and it's not the current. And when you start, blasting them with facts and the case in point, they get offended.
Yep.
Then we go back to the last segment we went to where they just find somebody to blame.
Yep. They deflect and they blame. And that's what they do. They can't win the argument on facts. They can't win the argument on logic. They have to deflect. They have to blame. They have to use the Alinsky's rules for radicals to change the subject and try to turn it around on you because you're to blame, folks. I think Kingpin had this spot on when he used to say, they don't hate guns, people. Actually, it was they don't hate Trump. They hate you. Period. They hate your freedom. They hate your ability to resist what they want to do. It comes back to that. I know how it sounds. I know it sounds like I'm a paranoid, delusional nut job. But the fact is I must question the motives of somebody who doesn't want me able to protect myself and my freedoms and my liberty. Why? What are you planning to do that makes my ability to defend myself a threat to you? It all comes back to that. Let's see what they're saying out in the chat. Cameraman says they're going to start with Detroit. I think he's talking about disarmament. Yeah, he goes on to say they're going to start taking the guns away from the inner cities first, then use that as precedence for the rest. Born to be a shooter, Josh. I'm just glad there's people out there saying what you're saying and others are hearing it, because this country is collapsing, and a big part of it is that people are just scared and want to keep their heads down. Rob points out the right and left is the same as good cop, bad cop. We can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, that's true. Rich White says the largest camp in Australia will have its own airport when it's finished. What reason would the camp need its own airport? It's also not expected to be complete until 2024. Tim Pool has a good video out on this, on the subject of the Australian camps. You should, if you're not listening to Tim Pool, you should go ahead and check that out, because he's got the story on that. As a complete total aside, is this your birthday, roll call? I thought I saw some noise out in the chat.
Yes, it is. It's my birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Ro.
Thank you, buddy.
Happy birthday, bud.
Everybody out there, give Ro a happy birthday.
Thank you, Pickle Butts.
In other news, let me get to my topics. We all know that last week, matter of fact, a week ago, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all counts. And boy, oh boy, the left, the libs, the anti-freedom, anti-self-defense types have just gone nuts. It's not quite as bad as when Trump was elected, but they are not happy. They are not happy campers. This is a piece from AmmoLand. It says Rittenhouse aftermath, myths, lies, and lots of videotape. From November 22nd by Dave Workman. Analysis. The left won't let go of the myths and outright lies that they have been whirling around the Kyle Rittenhouse self-defense case for months, and it is being captured on video where, if the teen supporters have their way, it will help in potential defamation lawsuits a la the Nick Sandmann case in 2019. Acquitted on 5 charges, Rittenhouse walked out of the Kenosha courtroom a free young man. The left has gone ballistic, including commentators at CNN and MSNBC, who are not happy with the verdict. There's a lively debate going on at KOMO's Facebook entry about the Rittenhouse verdict. Maria Shriver at NBC tweeted, "The idea that someone could be out with a semi-automatic weapon, kill people, and walk is stunning. I look forward to hearing from the jury. This is a moment for them to explain how they came to their decision." Well, apparently, Maria, you didn't watch the trial because that's all you had to do. Maria, this shows a tweet from her. It says, "I'm trying to take a beat to digest the Rittenhouse verdict. My son just asked me how it's possible that he didn't get charged for anything. How is that possible? I don't have an answer for him." Well, what you should have said is, son, he was charged. He went to trial, and a jury of his peers looked at the available evidence, listened to the prosecution, listened to the defense, and decided that he was not guilty. That's what you should have said, Maria, because that's the answer. As noted by Fox News in a report for Face the Nation, reporter Mark Strassman falsely claimed that Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines armed for battle. The same myth was perpetuated in a report on KIRO-TV in Seattle, in which it was stated Rittenhouse traveled to Wisconsin from Illinois armed with a semi-automatic rifle. It has been firmly established Rittenhouse didn't cross the state line with the rifle used in that fateful August 2020 incident, during which he fatally shot 2 men and wounded a third. All 3 of the people he shot were white. Shortly after the verdict, Shannon Watts, founder of the anti-gun rights Moms Demand Action, and trying to exploit the case for her gun ban agenda, sent an email blast which asserted, "Let me be clear. This verdict of not guilty is a miscarriage of justice and an indictment of our broken criminal justice system. A white teenager got his hands on a semi-automatic rifle, showed up to a demonstration for Black Lives, fatally shot Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, wounded Gage Grosskreutz, and he wasn't held accountable. That's exactly what the NRA wants. A society where anyone can have a gun anywhere with no training and no questions asked, and where people feel emboldened to shoot anyone over the slightest provocation without fear of consequences. This tragedy underscored what we already knew, Watts' message added. Allowing the open carry of firearms everywhere, especially at demonstrations, is dangerous and life-threatening. In fact, demonstrations with the presence of armed groups and individuals like those found in Kenosha in the wake of the police shooting of Jacob Blake are nearly 6 times as likely to turn violent or destructive compared to unarmed demonstrations. I guess that means the same as mostly peaceful. Not to be outdone, Renee Hopkins, CEO of the Seattle-based Alliance for Gun Responsibility, a billionaire-backed gun prohibition lobbying group, also sent an email blast almost simultaneously as Watts. In her message, Hopkins declared, "We are outraged by this lack of justice and accountability. This decision is proof of how far we are from the beacon of justice and equality that our country claims to be. The reality is, a white gunman was free to cross state lines with semi-automatic assault weapon, shoot 3 people, and be portrayed as the victim." The case provides incontrovertible evidence of the threat posed by openly carried firearms and the shoot-first mentality promoted by the gun lobby, Hopkins added. The presence of a gun means any situation can turn deadly in the blink of an eye. That is why we fought to prohibit openly carried guns at protests in the state capitol in Washington, and why we will continue working to ensure that all people can express themselves free from the threat of gun violence. There was a lack of justice and accountability. That there was a lack of justice and accountability is a canard, say some observers. Rittenhouse was held to account, and he was acquitted by the process of a trial, which translates to the exercise of justice. When reported by Seattle's KIRO, Hopkins' comments again perpetuated the myth of Rittenhouse's gun by stating, "It's really important to note that no one, especially no minor, should be allowed to cross state lines with a semi-automatic assault rifle, shoot 3 people, then be portrayed as a victim, or even worse, a hero." And that's what happened today. It should be noted that KIRO got Hopkins on video, but when it came to quoting the Second Amendment Foundation, reporter D.D. Sun only recited a statement provided by SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb. The verdict by the Kenosha jury is an affirmation that people, regardless of their age, have a right to defend themselves against violent attack by individuals or a mob, he said. Reuters quoted Wisconsin criminal defense attorney Daniel Adams, who observed that most lawyers who looked at the evidence had a feeling the state would not be able to clear the threshold of disproving self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. Such observations are evidently not adequate for those hoping for a conviction. Before devolving into a discussion about race relations and gun control, a piece in The Atlantic appeared to sum up the Rittenhouse trial aftermath as best as anyone could. The trial was inevitably a media circus, spurring intense criticism of the judge and prosecutors from commentators across the political spectrum, wrote reporter David A. Graham. Much of that attention offered little insight and sidestepped the point. The predicament of the Rittenhouse trial was that it could never do what many Americans, especially on the left, wanted. It couldn't produce a plain answer as to whether Rittenhouse was a hero or a villain. It couldn't say something about the state of race relations in America. The jury could never have rendered a yea or nay verdict on the saturation of guns in American society. The trial wasn't about race or guns in America. It was about the fatal shooting of 2 demonstrators and the wounding of a third, and whether those were acts of murder or self-defense. After careful deliberation, a jury of 7 women and 5 men concluded Rittenhouse fired in self-defense. It might be nice to say this is the end, but that's not likely. So, I'm going to make a prediction, folks. You notice that the media jackals keep stressing the crossing state lines, crossing state lines, crossing state lines. The celebtards keep stressing crossing state lines, crossing state lines, crossing state lines. the leftist politicians keep stressing crossing state lines, crossing state lines, crossing state lines, which is demonstrably bullshit. I guarantee there will be legislation introduced very soon to try to prohibit crossing state lines with a gun. Watch. What do you guys think?
It's also interesting how they're talking about, well, there wasn't justice on that because he wasn't crucified. But then none of them seem to be bringing up the Georgia case where those three guys who, at least one of them tried to claim self-defense, chased down and killed a guy, and all three of them went down for murders.
That's right. The Ahmaud Arbery case. They were found guilty because, hey, guess what? It wasn't self-defense. The cameraman rightly points out, I hate to break it to them, but it's not illegal in any fashion to cross state lines with a weapon. Not unless it's an SBR or something like that you have, or a registered machine gun, then you have to get permission or actually notify the appropriate people that you are going to do so. But yeah, by and large, for a regular old firearm, no. You don't have to. You're completely cool to have a trunk full of guns going across state lines. Have done it.
Well, and that's where I think also where on that Rittenhouse case, that's where the prosecutors tried to bring that, tried to use that, SBR thing about, and it was disproven right there in court when they measured it. And when the jury wasn't in the room, of course.
That's what got the gun charge against Kyle thrown out. The fact that it wasn't a short-barreled rifle.
That's what I was getting to, Budget. That's where they tried to use that, cross state lines, whatever, when, without the jury in the room, that, the Rittenhouse's lawyer, and they go, well, we've got a tape measure right here. Let's measure it right now. And the prosecutor finally admitted that, yeah, we know it's of legal length, and that, a particular charge got dropped because of that.
Mm-hmm. That was great. I was quite happy to see that. That law that in Wisconsin is just garbage. It was poorly crafted. I mean, hell, I'm not even a lawyer, and I think I probably could have done a better job of that. But, I digress. Like, maybe no person under the age of 18 shall carry a firearm unless they're under a parental supervision and or hunting. Boom, done. But no, they screwed it up because, lawyers have to complicate things.
Well, they purposely write the legislation very gray, vague, and complicated, so that way they can, use it however they want to, whenever they want.
Yep. Yep. All right, now, next up, the media is shady. We all know that. We also all know that the ATF is shady. Shady AF. They are shady. They've been collecting data on us. We all know that every time we have to go to, well, maybe somebody out there who's watching doesn't know. Maybe. But my assumption is that the majority of you know that anytime we go to a federal firearms licensee, we go to a gun shop, and we buy a firearm, we have to fill out Form 4473 and pass a background check. The federal firearms licensee is required to keep that paperwork for 20 years. The ATF can come in and inspect that paperwork whenever they want. Roll call, am I correct on this?
That is correct.
They recently changed the form so that the gun's serial number and make and model is on the first page right along with your name. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Because it used to be on the second or third page.
Yeah, it was on the last page, I believe.
So all that isn't good enough for the ATF. The ATF, being a government agency, wants what all government agencies want, and that's more. This is from FoxNews.com. Republicans warn ATF taking giant leap toward a federal firearm registry. Biden administration using political leverage to encroach on the constitutional rights, GOP congressman says, by Houston Keene. A group of House Republicans is warning that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives could be laying the groundwork for a backdoor federal gun registry. Republican Representative Michael Cloud of Texas led 51 of his colleagues in a letter to acting ATF Director Marvin Richardson on Monday, expressing their concern over a proposed rule by the agency that Republicans fear could eventually lead to a backdoor gun registry around Congress's prohibition. The recently proposed rule essentially removes the 20-year burn date that the federal firearms licensees must abide by, requiring them to preserve firearm purchase records older than 2 decades. While the preservation of records may not seem like a big deal, the federal licensees are required to submit their records to the ATF upon closing up shop, meaning every American gun owner's record would eventually end up in the ATF's hands. The Biden administration is yet again ignoring the real threats against America and instead using political leverage to encroach on the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens, Cloud told Fox News in a statement. The proposed rule would be a giant leap toward a federal firearm registry, which is explicitly banned by law, the Texas Republican continued. Requiring federal firearm licensees to preserve records older than 20 years will enable the Biden administration to collect more information on law-abiding gun owners, all with the purpose of eventually having a registry of every gun owner in the United States. Aidan Johnston, the Director of Federal Affairs for the gun rights advocacy group Gun Owners of America, warned in a statement to Fox News that the ATF would have every gun record going back to 2001 should the rule be enacted. If the Biden administration continues with its planned changes, ATF's registry eventually will include 100% of firearms transactions, sucking up every record since 2001. Johnston said. And remember, folks, they want private sales to not be private anymore and have to go through a dealer and get the background check as well. So just keep that in mind. These plans for a national registry violate federal law, infringe on the Second Amendment, and put law-abiding gun owners on the path to total gun confiscation, he continued. The lawmakers wrote that they are concerned the Biden administration is leveraging its power in a way to establish a federal gun registry and that they are opposed to the proposed rule in question. According to the recently published documents, the ATF has collected 54.7 million records in fiscal year 2021 alone, the letter reads. It is an outrage that the federal government would maintain such extensive records of law-abiding citizens' law-abiding firearm transfers. The letter also points out that Congress made it clear that the Firearm Owners Protection Act that the federal government shall not create a federal gun registry and has prohibited ATF from creating any centralized databases with its funding. This gives us serious cause for concern that the Biden administration is intent on creating a federal gun registry by circumventing the legislative process, the House Republicans continued. In fact, a GAO report from 2016 was titled, ATF did not always comply with the Appropriations Act restriction and should better adhere to its policies. The lawmakers ended their letter by asking the ATF a series of questions, including the number of records currently held and the amount of records already digitized. It is critical that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives does not use its power to encroach on the privacy of gun owners and restrict their Second Amendment rights, the lawmakers wrote, demanding a response by the end of the year. Joining Cloud on the letter are a number of big-name Republicans, including House Conference Chair Elise Stefanik of New York, Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, and Jim Jordan of Ohio. The ATF did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment. I have to wonder, again, I know this kind of makes me sound like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. I understand this. But again, I have to ask the question, what does the ATF want with all those records? Why does the ATF want that sort of information? Why would they want you to keep those records forever? Why would they want to have access to those records forever? I mean, sure, right now they're prohibited, quote unquote, from making a database. They're prohibited, quote unquote, from making a registry right now. But remember, folks, the history of gun control in America, as strategized by the left, has been the history of them playing the long game. Incrementalism, remember. They've taken a little bit here. They've taken a little bit there. And eventually, just like little bricks add up to a tall skyscraper, these little bits of little bits of little bits, an inch here, an inch there, they add up. So I foresee a time, or they're preparing against the time, hoping that it comes, that they're no longer prohibited. And then you know what the first thing they'll do is. They'll create that database. They'll create that registry, de facto and backdoor, because they have the records. The records are all digitized. I mean, what is a digitized set of records? What are a set of records? They're a fucking database. Why would they want that? Why would they want a database of gun owners in America? Why would they want to know who has which firearms? You can trust and believe that despite the lies that they tell, it isn't about safety, quote unquote, because they don't give a shit whether you're safe or not. They don't care whether you're attacked by criminals. They don't care whether you have the means to defend yourself and your property and your family and your livelihood. They don't give a damn about it. As a matter of fact, the only way that they give a damn about it is so that they don't want you to have it. And it ain't that they don't want you to be able to defend yourself from criminals, folks. It's that they want to be able to know who has what so they know where to go to get it. Because eventually, they want you disarmed. They've said it. The anti-gun lobby in this country has said that complete citizen disarmament is the goal. I'm going to tell you this. Somebody that doesn't want you able to defend yourself is not your friend. What are they doing that would require me to be disarmed? Why would they be afraid of my gun? Why would they be afraid of your gun? And more specifically, why would they be afraid of our guns? Is what they have planned for us so grievous that they would have to fear our guns? That's what I got to ask, folks. What do you think? Drop a comment down below and sound off in the chat. And you guys here on the panel, what do you think?
Talking about the backdoor registry turning into an official registry. Heck, look at on a small scale, that's where California claimed for years that they weren't tracking one thing or another. And then here, just the last couple of years, when they implemented their background check on ammo, magically, the day that that law went into effect, they already had, their own registry to check it against. That was separate, except that was separate from the feds. Gee, I wonder where they got that from.
How could they have already had that existing? It's almost like they already had it in defiance of the law. They wouldn't do that. No, never. Remember, folks, I said government agencies, and this applies to government in general. They want the same thing, all of them do, and it's one thing: more. They want more. They want more money. They want more influence. They want more control. But above all, and before everything, they want more power. That's what they want. They want more authority. And they want that authority over you. So.
And that's why anyone who wants power over another, I don't care what letter is next to their name, can't be trusted.
Yep. Absolutely right. Born to be a shooter, Josh says, I may be cray-cray, but I'm pretty sure they have records of every gun sold since digital check system. Roll call. Let me ask you a question, since you are in the business, or have been in the business, of selling firearms, pew-pews. When you do a NICS check, no firearm information is sent on that NICS check, correct? It's just the potential buyer's information.
The only firearms information that's sent is whether it's a long gun or a handgun, and that's it, I believe.
But no serial number sent, no make, model, anything like that, just long gun or handgun?
Yeah, just long gun or handgun.
Okay.
And the only way they get your serial numbers if they come and look at your paperwork or they call and ask for it.
Okay.
And then if you buy two, well, I don't know how it is in some people's states, but here in Indiana, if you buy two handguns at the same time, that will spark a Clio, that goes to your state police or whoever's in charge in your state, and that does send all the information to them. So that's the only way that they would really get all your information if you bought two handguns at the same time. And that only occurs at one FFL. So if you go to another FFL and buy another handgun, that doesn't track that way.
Well, that's if you're doing the paper 4473. With some, so I do ask roll call for some of these other retailers, some of the bigger ones, that nowadays you fill out your 4473 on a computer. How does that affect it?
Filling your 4473 out on a computer doesn't do anything. The only thing that gets sent to them is the type of gun it was, whether it was a handgun or a long gun, and your personal information, your name, your date of birth. If you put your social security number in there, or if you have a UPIN number, that stuff goes to them. The make and model of the gun do not go. That stays on your paperwork. But if your gun was stolen and recovered, they would come to your FFL, and that's when they figure out, all your information, the serial number on your gun, all that jazz. Or if, or if you're like a prohibited person, and somebody abides by the Brady law, which is after 3 days, that FFL has the right to release that firearm to somebody after 3 days. And then if that comes by through the NICS check because the guy delayed a gun and they use that, then they'll come back and they'll ask for all that information of what kind of gun it is, the make, the model, and the serial number, and they'll go track that gun down to who bought that gun.
You ever got a call from the ATF?
Several.
Gun-loving grandpa wanted to know. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, if it's serious enough, they'll just show up. They'll show up out of nowhere. Sometimes they just show up to see what's going on. If you have any, my ATF agent used to ask, like, is there anybody suspicious that's around? People that you suspect of straw purchasing? Should we take a look at them?
Did you tell him other than ATF agents?
What's that?
Did you ask him if he meant someone other than an ATF agent?
Yeah, right. I had one time where he actually came to the gun lockup, and we were getting some paperwork for him, and I turned around, he was taking a picture of all the people's names that were on the delay board. and I asked him what he was doing, and I was like, dude, I don't think you should be doing that. You know, that's not what you're here for. You're not here to look at my delays. You're here to look for this certain firearm, and the paperwork for said firearm. I mean, they're tricky like that. That's why I try not to let them in there, you know, like, oh, I'll go get the 4473 and I'll come back and make a copy for them. I try not to invite them into the gun lockup just for that type of deal. I mean, you gotta understand, the ATF is not your friend.
What?
I don't care. Yeah, they're not your friend. I mean, I guess if they're
Aren't
your
they
best
here to
friend,
protect us?
right? I mean, if they're your best friend that you've known for years and years, I mean, I guarantee you they'll still turn you in or they'll still take you to jail.
Well, duh.
You know what I'm saying? Because the paycheck, you know, depends on it. But like the ATF agent, like his dad came in, one of these guys, I think it was the ATF agent for South Bend, Indiana. His dad comes in, sees an AR pistol, you know, calls his son, tells him that the gun's here, you should come and buy it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, do you want this gun or does your son want this gun? He's like, oh, my son wants this gun. So he comes in there and I start talking to him a little bit. And he's like, oh, man, this is great stock, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, that's and I didn't know he was an ATF agent at the time. And excuse me. And I'm like, oh, don't say stock, man. The ATF frowns upon that kind of word towards these kinds of firearms. He's like, oh, don't worry. I'm an ATF agent and you won't have to worry about these pistols anymore. He's like, you won't be able to own them or have them. So that was the kind of attitude that I get from ATF agents and why I don't like them. I ended up selling him the firearm, but still, in the end, if you sell guns behind a counter, keep the ATF people at arm's length. You're going to have an obligation to work with them. You have no choice. If they want to see your paperwork, you have to show them. If they want to audit you, you have to let them audit you. You have to let them do stuff. This is the same with suppressors and SBRs. If they want to know where your stuff is, they have the right to come in your house and look for it. You know, you can't give these people that kind of power over you. I mean, I know cans are cool and SBRs are cool, but you're giving up, I believe, this is just my opinion, nobody else on the panel, but I believe you're giving up a piece of your freedom.
That's
when
why
you
I
let
don't have them.
Yeah, that's why I don't have them. I mean, yes, they're cool. Yes, they work for certain applications. But do I really want to give up that speck of freedom to where if, say, they outlaw pistol braces, well, guess what? They're going to go and they're going to get records because you have to hold on to them for 20 years. They'll go get the records and they'll find out where they are. And I'm on the fence about it, but I keep a record of all my firearms, whether I still had them or I sold them or I traded them or whatever they are. I always keep that kind of paper trail, and I always make a bill of sale when I do a private sale. I always do, because you never know. You know, it might be your good friend, but if that gun is stolen, you know, and your friend reports it and it ends up in a different county, where do you think they're going to go? They're not going to go to your friend. They're going to go to you because you signed the original paperwork. So you're going to have to say, like, you know, I sold this to my friend. Here's the shit saying that he's not a felon. You know, he's a law-abiding citizen, just to back yourself up. Yes, you're basically correct. You know, creating inventory of your shit yourself. But I mean, in the end, it's better to be safe than sorry. But not to get off topic, but yeah, man, if the only way they can get everything from you, about you, this, that, and the other thing, is either you buy 2 handguns at the same time at the same place, or your gun's used in a crime. That's the only time they get it. When you fill out your 4473, it's just your personal information that you put on there, and it's whether it's a long gun or a handgun. Hopefully that explains it.
Yes, it does. I want to make a complete aside here, folks. I've noticed that if you haven't noticed, I talk with my hands, and I just noticed that my hands are looking kind of yucky here. No, my hands aren't dirty. They're stained. I've been doing a bunch of leather work lately and made this yesterday, so That's where that brown comes from, is leather dye, folks. So yeah, Mike's not dirty and filthy. Mike's just stained because he forgets to put gloves on when he dyes leather. Mike's not dirty. He's just stupid. Speaking of stupid.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
Those of you who have been paying attention over the last couple of years during the presidential campaign, old Beto O'Rourke, or as I like to call him, Beta O'Cuck, made some pretty goofy-ass statements about AR-15s and AK-47s. Well, despite the fact that gun control was a bad topic for him at the polls, he decides he's going to double down. This is from The Hill from November 21st. O'Rourke stands by his "we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47" comment. Democratic Texas gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke on Sunday said he stands by his controversial 2019 comment that "we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47." Asked by co-host Dana Bash on CNN's State of the Union if he would stand by his vow if elected governor of Texas, O'Rourke said, "I still hold this view. Look, we're in a state that has a long, proud tradition of responsible gun ownership, and most of us here in Texas do not want to see our friends, our family members, our neighbors shot up with these weapons of war. So yes, I still hold this view," O'Rourke said. While running for president in 2019, O'Rourke defended his proposed mandatory buyback of assault-style weapons during a Democratic primary debate. "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47, he told a crowd at the time. "We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore." The gubernatorial candidate on Sunday went on to say that Texans have told him that they are concerned about the bill Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed over the summer that allows for concealed carry without a permit in the state. "We don't want extremism in our gun laws. We want to protect the Second Amendment. We want to protect the lives of our fellow Texans. And I know that when we come together and stop this divisive extremism that we have seen from Greg Abbott right now, we're going to be able to do that," he said. O'Rourke, who previously represented Texas in the U.S. House of Representatives, launched his campaign for governor of the Lone Star State last week. He also waged an unsuccessful bid for Senate in 2018. So, Beta O'Cuck, you are contestant number 1 in Moron of the Week. Remember we were talking earlier about the left being upset about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict? Well, old Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, has severely disappointed me. Apparently weapons are not part of his religion. The Mandalorian star Pedro Pascal eulogizes murdered criminals who attacked Kyle Rittenhouse. On Saturday, Star Wars star Pedro Pascal jumped to his Twitter account to memorialize 2 of the men who threatened and attacked Illinois teenager Kyle Rittenhouse, insisting that they were murdered. The day after Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges brought against him by the state of Wisconsin, Pascal wrote that Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber were murdered, not killed in self-defense. Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 27, murdered August 25, 2020, he said, posting a photo of the 2 men's faces. Rest in peace. And then it shows the tweet. Some fans were shocked that Pascal would be celebrating the lives of 2 convicted felons, one of whom was a level 3 sex offender, and both of whom physically attacked the smaller and younger Rittenhouse before they were shot. Huber bashed Rittenhouse over the head with his skateboard and attempted to wrestle the teen's rifle from him on that fateful day. Rittenhouse did not fire on Huber until after the 26-year-old physically attacked him. Huber has a criminal record as well. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts of strangulation and suffocation, plus false imprisonment in a domestic abuse case. He was arrested and charged after he attacked his brother and grandmother with a knife. Huber spent nearly 5 months in jail after his conviction. Huber also has various other charges in his past, including a disorderly conviction charge from 2008 and a domestic abuse charge from 2012. Huber had been jailed in Wisconsin for one thing or another at least 10 times. But Joseph Rosenbaum is an even more dangerous and unsavory character, despite the actor's praise. Rosenbaum had only just been released from the mental ward of a local hospital hours before he accosted Rittenhouse. Witnesses said he was erratic and belligerent as he left the hospital. Worse, Rosenbaum was a convicted level 3 sex offender with an extremely long criminal record. In 2002, an Arizona grand jury charged Rosenbaum with 11 counts of child molestation and inappropriate sexual activity with children, including anal rape, masturbation, oral sex, and showing minors pornography. The victims were 5 boys ranging in age from 9 to 11. He was later convicted of 2 amended counts as part of a plea deal. The 36-year-old criminal has an extensive arrest record comprised of at least 40 incidents in Arizona. Rosenbaum had also been placed on the Wisconsin sex offender registry when he moved there. He has since been removed per a state law that removes dead offenders from the list. On the day he died, Rosenbaum had an open case filed against him in Kenosha and stood accused of bail jumping. During his trial, Rittenhouse noted that Rosenbaum had persisted in chasing and threatening him during the riot that night, then attempting to grab his gun. He was chasing me. I was alone. He threatened to kill me earlier that night. I didn't want to have to shoot him, Rittenhouse said on the stand. I pointed it at him because he kept running at me and I didn't want him to chase me. Though the prosecution in the Rittenhouse case attempted to portray Rosenbaum as a concerned citizen who just happened to show up at the riot, Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger had to admit that Rosenbaum had been committing violent acts that night, including setting things on fire and using racial slurs while taunting other people. A video from that night shows Rosenbaum repeatedly shouting, "Shoot me!" N-word, shoot me. Pascal includes gendered pronouns in his social media display name, a step farther than most progressive activists who only include them in their bio descriptions. So, Putrid Pascal, you're contestant number 2 in Moron of the Week. But wait, folks! There's more. Because Mark Ruffalo, however you want to call him, couldn't let Pedro Pascal one-up him. This is from a tweet from Mark Ruffalo that says, "We come together to mourn the lives lost to the same racist system that devalues black lives and devalued the lives of Anthony and JoJo." Hashtag reimagine Kenosha. He called a convicted sex offender JoJo! The hashtag reimagine Kenosha is entirely appropriate here because you must have an active imagination to believe anything that's even close to this shit. More tweets from Mark go on to say, "After all we've seen and heard about these weapons of war, these killing machines, there is no doubt that people who faced this young man were more afraid of him than he was of them. He was the one with a weapon of war, loaded and ready to be used on people. Yeah, they were so terrified they chased him down. You dumb son of a bitch." Justice weeps bitterly today. We're coming together to heal the scars left by the wounds of this grief. We will care for each other and remember why we continue to march. Oh my God. The stupidity here is just brutal. So here we have it, folks. The 3 contestants on Moron of the Week: Beta O'Cuck, Putrid Pascal, and the Incredible Chump. Oh, sorry for those of you who were wearing earphones. My bad. What do you guys think? Who deserves the title of Moron of the Week? Oh, it looks like Pickle left the jar. So roll call. Who do you think deserves to be Moron of the Week? The Incredible Chump, Putrid Pascal, or Beta O'Cuck?
The first guy. The first movie star.
Pedro Pascal?
The guy. Yeah. That's disappointing.
Mandalorian.
I like
Yeah,
the Mandalorian.
So there we have so far 6 votes. 50% Beta O'Cuck, 33% Putrid Pascal, and 17% the Incredible Chump. So let's see, where are we? Small Caliber Arms Review. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Small Caliber says I'm voting for Beto. So, yep, go ahead and vote for Beto. Baby Yoda was always a star of the show anyhow, says Screaming Skull Saloon. I agree. I've never watched The Mandalorian, and the only reason I'd buy a Baby Yoda is for use as a target. Dude! Baby Yoda's adorable. Don't you hurt Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda targets sound fun. Might have to make some to try it out. Can we vote all of the above? Yeah, sorry, Guns of Barbecue, and anybody else out there who may have had headphones in for that. I guess my version of the Incredible Hulk come out of the box for just a second there, because man, wow, the stupidity of calling this child rapist JoJo. Fucking JoJo. Really?
That was his nickname. That was his nickname. Like, this dude knew him, so you knew this pedophile. Well, that seems to
from
be
what I
par for the
understand,
course
maybe Mark. I think
Hollywood.
Mark comes from Kenosha, but still,
He probably does know him.
maybe he was.
I mean,
I'm
I'm
out
not.
of Epstein Island too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that guy is, but I mean, if you're gonna sit there and be a part of Hollywood, we know what comes along with that. And to call him by his nickname, JoJo, what, did you know this guy? Are you one of these people that probably shielded him from sexually assaulting these other 5 kids that he did?
Out there in the chat, we got 9 votes. Beta with 56%, Pascal with 22%, and the Incredible Chump with, a.k.a. Mark Ruffalo, with 22%. We got 14 people watching, only 9 votes. Let's get some more votes in here. We need at least 5 more people. Come on. What is this? Let your voice be heard. Sound off. Tell me what you think. This is your time. This is the audience participation, even more than normal portion of the show here. So participate, man. Got to get these votes. These are rookie numbers, folks. 10 votes. And Pedro Pascal come up with another vote. So we got 50% Beta, 30% Pascal, 20% Marky Mark. Nah, I'm not going to say that about Marky Mark, because, you know, he hasn't done anything recently that I know of. We're going to have to go ahead and call this here real soon. See, my vote would have obviously been for the Incredible Chump. But, you know what? Unlike the FEC, I want elections to be fair. I want voting to not be rigged. So, Beto O'Rourke, a.k.a. Beta O'Cuck, you are the winner of Moron of the Week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, so those of you who've watched the show before know what's next. We've done with our main topics. We've chosen the Moron of the Week. There's only one thing left. That's Roll Call 219's favorite segment, self-defense shoutouts.
Yay!
Self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. No, it is instead where I'm reveling in the prospect that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to keep the bad guy from making him do the same. First up is this piece from 6abc.com. Delivery man shoots, kills armed suspect trying to rob him in Philadelphia. 2 armed suspects picked the wrong delivery man to rob Saturday in Philadelphia's Mayfair section. Police say the victim was leaving his home after dropping off a delivery to his family after midnight on the 3200 block of Longshore Avenue. That's when 3 suspects attempted to rob him, officials say. Police say the armed men approached the victim and demanded money. The victim then reportedly told the suspects the money was in his car. While the suspects were looking through the victim's car for cash, he pulled out his gun and fired, according to police. I don't really like violence, but it's in self-defense, so if he didn't shoot them, they might have shot him. So I think, in that case, there's not much he can do, said Gale of Mayfair. 2 of the men were hit several times by bullets and taken by police to Jefferson Torresdale Hospital. Police say each of the suspects shot are approximately 20 years old. One of the suspects was shot multiple times across the body, police say. He remains in critical condition. Officials say the second suspect was shot multiple times in the chest and later died from his injuries at the hospital. An arrest has been made, and 2 guns were found at the scene. Police say the deliverman did have a permit to carry. Next up, This piece from Fox 13 News. Newport Richey man shot after using machete to attack victim, deputies say, from November 22nd. Pasco County deputies arrested a 26-year-old man after an argument escalated and he used a machete to attack the victim, officials said. Deputies arrested 28-year-old Naquan Crawford on Saturday, saying he was involved in an argument with an individual. According to his arrest affidavit, the victim went to his bedroom, but Crawford followed him, armed himself with a machete, and stood in the doorway of the person's bedroom. Investigators said the victim told Crawford to leave, but the suspect started swinging his machete, striking the victim in his left hand, left chest, and left side of his head. Then, the victim used his firearm to shoot Crawford. He was struck 3 times and had non-life-threatening injuries, according to officials. Deputies said the suspect admitted to swinging the machete, but it was in self-defense. However, evidence at the scene supported the victim's actions of self-defense. Crawford was arrested on an aggravated battery charge. And last but most certainly not least, from CBS17.com, North Raleigh homeowner shoots person breaking into house, police say. Raleigh, North Carolina. A homeowner in North Raleigh shot someone breaking into his house Saturday afternoon, police said. Officers responded to the shooting report around 1:50 p.m. along with the 3500 block of Terra Vista Way. The neighborhood is off Lewisburg Road and north of Mitchell Mill and Lagan Mill roads. Police said a man came home to find someone breaking into his house. The homeowner shot the break-in suspect in the leg in what police described as self-defense. The person who was shot was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. So there you have it, folks. Despite what the mainstream legacy media might say, despite what the politicians say, despite what the anti-gunners all say, good people defend themselves against bad people with guns all the time. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'd like to thank Calaveras 32 Special for being here earlier. Go check his stuff out. Roll call. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, man, go check out my channel. You can find it on YouTube. I also have an Instagram where I post frequently on that as well. I'm not doing any kind of really big firearm-related content on TikTok. I keep getting banned as soon as I upload the video. So I kind of just stirred away. But if you want to go see some dumb shit, that's an outlet to go. And I'm also on Twitter as well, where I tweet people and poke and prod them just like they do us and give them facts, and they freak out and they cry. But other than that, man, thanks for having me. It was a good show. I might have a chat tonight for my birthday. So if you want to come on over to the Roll Call 219 channel and join us and celebrate today, feel free to do so. If not, spend time with your family. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being here, buddy. And once again, happy birthday. I want to thank all of you out there in the chat for being here. Anyone who listens to this in the replay, thank you very much. I appreciate you all. You guys saw the hat that I made earlier here. These will be available in my Etsy shop in the very near future once I get some good pictures taken. And here's the link out there in the chat to the shop. There's also a link in the description below. Go ahead and check that out. And you know what, folks? Make sure that you let your Congress critters and elected representatives know that the garbage that they have planned for us is not acceptable. We will not tolerate it. We will not comply. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, bicycle messenger, smoke signals, hemaphore, heliograph, anything that you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.